Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is Thursday the 7th of November, the day after the decision in the US on the presidential election, and that had a massive impact on the financial markets around the world. Today we'll start with the iShares Global Clean Energy Index that got hammered about almost 8% yesterday in US session, and it has taken out the minor support here at 12.72. That is the ETF, actually, as we can see, iShares Global Clean Energy ETF. It had been trading in this triangle-like correction pattern here, but it has now broken lower. But as we can see here, this is the weekly chart. It was a collapse in slow motion, so to speak, after this massive move up here back in 2020, and now it's collapsed, and now we are back to the 2020 early levels here, and we are likely to move lower down to the to these areas here around $10. Another one that was also badly affected, that was Vestas Wind, that is the world's biggest wind turbine producer, or one of them at least. It was already being sold off after disappointing earnings the day before here, actually. So it actually sold off the day before, and it continued obviously yesterday session, and as we can see here on the weekly chart, well, it is almost back to where it was, the lows here back from 2020, just around 97. We could see it dipping towards that. I think buyers will slowly start trying to come in here and lift it and bottom facing, but there is it could take a very long time for Vestas Wind to push low. We can to push higher or to bounce. We can see that the RSI is in decline. It is at an extreme historically, so I think we will see some buying here around 100 Danish kroner if it comes down to that, but we are very close to it, and there's no support until around 97. It would be for the patient investor to buy Vestas at these levels here, and also with the outlook for clean energy business after the presidential election. On the main market, and S&P 500 that pushed higher to new all-time high. Here we have the weekly chart, and if we just stay on the weekly chart just for a little while, we can see there's massive divergence on the RSI, but the trend has, the bullish trend has resumed. After here we can see on the daily it broke below this rising trend line here, broke below and break out to the downside of this rising wedge now, but now it has been demolished, busted, since it has broken back into it and broken higher, and we are above 5,900. And to get an idea how much we could move, at least on the short term, it seems like we could push to towards the 6,000 level. Here we have the 161.8 projection, just around just a few cents below 6,000. So I think we will test the 6,000 here fairly shortly. For S&P 500 to resume downtrend, well, first of all, we need to close this gap here. Maybe we should clean up a little bit, and this is also, I'm showing you how you can also use the Fibonacci tools here. It needs to close this gap here that it created yesterday, and then we could have a different situation. But for now, we have the RSI back above the 60 threshold. We have it breaking above this falling trend line here, and it's very close to cancel this divergence. And if it does that, that is if it takes out the level from here, and then you just do this, you add the trend line, horizontal trend line breaking above that 68 here, well, then that is cancelled, and there's potential to higher levels. Pre-market unchanged, so it's fairly calm. It's like the traders are taking a little bit of a breather here pre-market. Also Nasdaq, a new all-time high, jumped higher, also busted this rising wedge pattern. I have removed the other rising trend line. We are back above 60 threshold, bullish trend. We could push above 21,000 on the short term. On the Dow Jones Index, that was actually one that moved the most, about 3.6%, back above this trend line here. Couldn't get below the 41,563, and there's now potential higher up to around 44,360, maybe 44,600. The European market started out very nicely, pushing higher, but then collapsed towards the end of the session. Totally collapsed here. We have the Eurostoxx 50 closed below 4,800, or actually smack bang on it, as you can see, 4,800 right there. RSI back below 40 threshold, was already below, indicating lower levels, so it was a little bit surprised to see it spiking higher, but this is more like it seems like the European markets are really heavy, and I think they will continue today, also especially after we have some turmoil in in Germany, with the German government basically collapsing. DAX index also heavy sell-off after spiking higher, but couldn't hold on, and testing the 19,000 again, a close below could trigger another sell-off down to 18,600 level. Pre-market unchanged. The Amsterdam index, more or less same picture, 873. If it takes out that once again, well, then it could dip down to around 860, 858. CAC 40, testing 73.41 once again. If it takes out 7,300, and I wouldn't be surprised if that scenario plays out, with the RSI being in negative sentiment, pointing to lower levels. And I have to say, for Europe to turn around technically, it needs to take out the highs, the peaks from Wednesday yesterday. The Swiss market also tried to push higher, but got sold off and hit by selling pressure. 11,750 is key support. Massive sell-off in euro dollar yesterday. After it hit, well, I actually deleted it, but maybe I should show you what it actually did occur. You can see here it hit the 38.2 retracement at 109.35, got hit by sell-off back below 108.70, and got sold off even more down to almost the 106.65 key support area. And we talked about it yesterday. Key support area here on the weekly. You can also see why, if it takes out that level, it's already broken out of this rising trend line here. If it takes out 106.65 and the RSI closes the week below 40 threshold, doesn't have to be this week, could be next week, well, then there is potential down to 105 area, maybe even 104. So that's something to keep an eye on daily chart. Going back to that, well, we have a little bit of a bounce here, and let me just remove this one so we can see what's going on. We could see a little bit of a bounce, and just to give you an idea, then I will add Fibonacci to this correction here, and we could see, well, we have 38.2 retracement at 107.80, but we could bounce up to 108.40, which is 61.8 retracement. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, well, then expect selling pressure to resume and pushing it lower. Euro sterling also lower yesterday, testing this trend line here. I'm keeping it despite it was broken, because sometimes it tests from the other side, and now it actually does. It is still 83. That is key down. If it breaks below that once again, well, then we are back in bearish sentiment and bearish trend. So let's see if it can actually bounce from here. There is a pressure to the downside, and we could see it dipping lower. So expect a little bit of volatility today too. But as we can see, the 100 moving coming down there, and the 55 moving average coming down, kind of giving a pressure to the lower side. And what is attracting the sterling? Well, sterling, the yields in UK has been rising, so that's why money is flowing into. That's one reason why money is flowing into to UK. We have cable got rejected here at 130.45. and back below the trend line here. So that seems to be dancing around here, almost down to 128. We're still holding on above it, and the 200 moving average. So they expect some volatility in this range between here. So now it's really hard to predict with some certainty the direction of this. If it takes out 130.45, I mean the peak from yesterday that was a little bit higher, well then the next is 131, but then we have the 55 moving average kind of giving it a pressure to the downside. The RSI is showing divergence, so it's a little bit up in the air. But if RSI is pushed back below 40 threshold and below the rising trend line here, expect 128 to be taken out. Okay, we are on to dollar yen that broke above 154 yesterday. We do now have divergence, as you can see here. The RSI is declining, but we are in a bullish trend, so trend is friend, and we could see it pushing higher above 155.25 in this region here, around 155.5 maybe even. I think that it will be tested. If it takes it out, then there's potential higher. And as we talked about yesterday, we can see here on the weekly chart what's actually going on, and that will be key for the week. Will the RSI close above 60 threshold, or will it be rejected? If it does close above, well, then we are looking at 157 level, which is 786 retracement of the entire downtrend. If it doesn't, well, then we can see dollar yen being sent back down this trend line here and back into the cloud. But for now, we are above the cloud, so there is potential higher, but we need the confirmation on the RSI. The euro yen, well, didn't do much yesterday, really. It was fairly muted. Let's zoom in on it. It was fairly muted, so we are just basically trading sideways. Positive sentiment still on the RSI, indicating we are likely to see it pushing higher towards 168. But it is still holding on here on the 164. That is key support that should be observed, be above 200 moving average and 100 moving average. So I could imagine we are seeing this trading sideways a little bit, but if it takes out the 166.70, the spike up there, well, then we are looking at 168. But for now, it is wait and see mode. Aussie yen broken above 101.75. Resistance, testing the 61.8 retracement at the moment at 100, at just above 102. Positive sentiment. We could see it pushing higher, but this area here is giving some resistance, but the trend is bullish. Sterling yen pushing towards the 200 resistance again, and this area around here. Very close to the 200 it was yesterday. It didn't get above it. That could be a really key psychological level. That's the 200. However, the RSI is in a positive sentiment. There's no divergence, indicating we're likely to see a push. We could see a push up to the 202.5. If it takes out the 196 support once again, and I would actually say confirmation would be if taking out the 195.35, that spike down here, well, then we have demolished this picture. But I don't think it, I think we'll see it pushing higher. Aussie dollar, well, very volatile yesterday, being hammered down below the minor support, and it got almost down to 65, but it didn't get all the way down to the support around, then bounced again, and now it's knocking on this 66.40 resistance once again. Breakout is needed to the upside for a push towards 67.25. So a little bit of indecision here on the Aussie dollar. I did send it lower, but I think we will see it breaking higher towards the 67.25. But then we have the 55 moving average kind of giving it a pressure to the downside, also the 100 moving average, and we're still in negative sentiment, so we could be caught in this range around current level. Dollar Canada is massive volatility over the past few days, first down to around the 61.8 retracement, then bounced back up to test the previous peak, and now back down again. So this is the range I want to see it break out of. This range here, 138.20 to the downside, or 139.60 to the upside, but it did test it yesterday, and now we are in this range here. So that's the breakout direction. It's big, I know, but sometimes that's how it is. However, the RSI is still in a positive sentiment. There is no divergence. This peak is confirming this peak. So there is potential higher for dollar Canada after a corrective move. Sterling Canada we're skipping today because there was no news still in the range. Swiss crosses, Euro Swiss here, still sideways. I mean, it can't really make up its mind, can it? It was above the falling trend line here, then back below. Now they could have another go, but it really needs to get above 94.50. And what is key is the RSI needs to close above 60 threshold for a bullish trend, and the 93.30 key support. And if RSI slips back below 40 threshold, then we are in a bearish mood for now. Fairly boring on Euro Swiss, but you have to be awake if you're following it. Suddenly it will break out. Dollar Swiss, that one broke higher after a lot of volatility, after a very long time boring, and then a lot of volatility, and then it broke higher. It actually took out the 87.50 resistance. Positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating we're likely to see it pushing higher. I think we'll see a little bit of a setback where we can see it down to around 87 here, and then I think it will resume uptrend towards 88.25. If it takes out these lows here from the past few days, then we are back in this area here and possibly below 86. The dollar index that jumped massively yesterday, right at the open, and continued higher above 105.25 to the 161.8 projection of this move here. Now setting back a little bit. I think we could see it test 104.5, maybe dipping a little bit lower. There is divergence on the RSI for now, so maybe we will see a sliding back in this area, and we could be trading in this area here between 104 and 105 for quite some time. So sometimes we have to wait and see for the next move. Let's have a look at metals, and especially gold, that got sold off yesterday below the rising trend line and has this morning tested 786 retracement at 26.43. RSI still in a positive sentiment, but we have been warned about this divergence for quite some time. If it breaks below and close below 40 threshold, then expect lower levels, and that scenario could play out if it continues lower, and then 2600 is key support. I don't think we'll see that. I think we will start crawling higher towards this rising trend line once again, towards 2700. And if it can get back above 2700, well, maybe it could crawl higher. But for now, support around at that level. On the silver got also sold off heavily, also reaches the 786 retracement at 31 and a change, 31.14. Spiked a little bit below the 55 moving average, but that has since bounced, and the RSI is still in a positive sentiment. I think we will see a bounce here the next couple of days towards 32 and maybe even higher. If we get it back above 32.25, then we could see uptrend resuming. And the interesting part is, yes, there is still positive sentiment, and that will be key the next couple of days. Will it stay above 40 threshold or not? And there is no divergence on the RSI, so we could see it is indicating there is a potential for higher levels. If RSI breaks back above its falling trend line here, and this is what you can do, or draw trend lines also on the RSI, then it is likely to resume uptrend. Copper, on the other hand, well, it tried to break higher 2 days ago here, excuse me, on the 5th of November, but couldn't really establish a bullish trend. The RSI was still in a positive sentiment, and it is in fact still in a positive sentiment. Well, sorry, it did actually close below 40 threshold there, so we are negative sentiment. However, we didn't get below the 786 retracement at 420. And that could also be crucial, but we are below the cloud, we are below 200 moving average, trying to move back above. But it really needs to get back above 450 to establish or resume a bullish trend. So a little bit up in the air what's going on with copper. That was a massive move there, to be honest. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, then expect selling pressure to continue or resume. WTI crude oil once again tested the 72.34 a resistance, can't really break it. If it takes out the spike ups here from the past couple of days, then we could potentially see it higher. But for now, it is really struggling. That's the key area to look out for. Same with Brent crude oil, couldn't even get up there at the 76.54. That is key to watch out for. Very close to resuming bearish trend. I think if it takes out the lows from yesterday, then it will resume bearish trend. Yields moved higher yesterday, spiked here. US 10-year Treasury yield spiked to the resistance here at 447, 448, just below 450. I think we will see a little bit of a setback. There's now divergence. You can see the RSI didn't really follow it up. So it looks fairly stretched. I think we could see it testing 430 if it takes out and let's just draw a trend line there, or a horizontal line. If it takes out 425, well, then we could see it pushing lower. And what I will also do, just to be prepared, if we are seeing a correction, could it take it lower? If we take from the entire uptrend there, well, then we have the 38.2 at 413, and that's quite interesting. That was also the key resistance back then, so we could see a correction down to around that level, where we also have the 200 moving average. So it is fairly stretched at the moment. However, if it takes out 450, and if we're looking at weekly chart, and this is really key, we can see on the weekly chart how it actually spiked above the upper falling trend line, but 448, 450, 450, close above 450 is key. And where will the week end on the RSI? Currently, we are above the 60 threshold. If it does close above, well, then we have a positive sentiment also on the RSI, indicating likely higher levels on the US 10-year Treasury yields. The 2-year is also higher yesterday. Excuse me. Also higher yesterday, but I think we will also see a bit of a correction. We can see that the RSI here is showing some divergence. We can see that the strength is indicating a possible exhaustion. I actually did expect it to see the 2-year up to around 428, maybe even spiking to 437, but it doesn't. I don't think it will materialize, but it could still do that. But I think we could slide back towards the 406 for a correction. In Europe, the EuroBund, well, extremely volatile. Yesterday, more calm today, but of course it was volatile yesterday, also with the German government collapsing. Let's see what it will do. I think we could be consolidating around these 131.60 level here. All right, that's a long one today. Have a nice day, and talk to you again tomorrow. Maybe there will be updates during the day.